with the latest on the corporate front, all the market trends, expert opinion, and sound business advice. It is your unique window into the business world, direct from the heart of China.
Hello and welcome to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Coming up, we will have half an hour of business news and analysis. On today's show, China's Spring Festival holiday consumption boom with surge of both tourism and box office. And the country's digital finance has gone global, enabling tourists to travel abroad with one wallet. And now let's begin with our top story. Chinese consumers have shown great spending power during this year's Spring Festival holiday. Experts say the 8-day holiday has been an unprecedented peak season for consumption, and it will pave the way for economic developments throughout the year. A report released by the China Tourism Academy said the total number of domestic tourist trips will reach 6 billion in the year 2024, with the combined number of inbound and outbound tourist trips expected to surpass 260 million. So for more on this, join us on the line now, Dr. Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow with the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. So, Dr. Zhou, I will start with you. So, take a look at this year's Spring Festival holiday consumption. We now see the holiday consumption spending surpassing the pre-pandemic levels in China. So, can we consider this year's holiday spending as pent-up demand still being released, or is it a new normal of stronger post-pandemic holiday spending?
In my understanding, it's becoming a very important moment for the growing up. After the pandemic, many of the consumers in China are not able to go out for the tourism or to go to the restaurants, but now they have the opportunities. So I can have a feeling that the trend is increasing very quickly. And while we are seeing not only for Chinese own or domestic tourists, there are some foreign tourists coming here to China, and they also benefit with a very important festival of the Spring Festival. So they have very important feeling about the culture. That's a kind of a combination of domestic consumers and foreign consumers.
And as Zhou mentioned, that we are seeing a surge in consumption related to, the cultural activities. So when it comes to tourism, what do you think is the new trend of it? And what kind of spillover effects does a tourism surge have on other forms of, consumption and demand?
Yeah, good to talk to you, Zhao Yang. Happy New Year. So in terms of the new trends, I think there are at least 3 kind of new trends that I think we can observe. Well, one is, of course, there are more trips that are being taken, especially when it comes to international outbound traveling. So domestic tourism has recovered relatively quickly last year, but international tourism was slower to come back. Part of the reason has to do with the slow recovery of international flights, and also some of the tourism kind of facilities that are still slow to come back. But this year, I think we have seen a lot more international travel, and that is expected to reach about 80% of the 2019 volumes. So that is one trend that we start to see more international traveling. And second, I think what we have seen is there have been increase in the new sort of popular destinations like in the Northeast, Harbin and Qixihar, and many of the sort of the ice and snow areas are becoming very attractive for tourists. And also internationally, previously, last year, for example, we saw 72% of the international trips were taken within the Southeast Asia. But this year, it's only about half of these international trips were in Southeast Asia. And so a lot more travelers go beyond Asia and go to Europe and elsewhere. But still, I think Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and all these Southeast countries still are still very popular, partly due to the reason that they also celebrate Lunar New Year, but also because of the newly passed, visa facilitation. And then the last trend is that, as you mentioned, a lot of these trips are based on culture and experience. People are no longer doing a lot of group trips to go to very specific places or, have to kind of shop until you drop the kinds of traveling. But really, people are going to the cultural sites. they're taking natural adventurers like skydiving or diving or skiing, going to watch the Northern Lights, for example. So I think a lot of these had to do with the Gen Z population, that they are going out for, travel experiences and cultural exposures, instead of just, going to some places, take pictures and buy stuff. And so I think these are very interesting trends. And of course, tourism is in and of itself is a very important industry. But more importantly, as you mentioned, with the boom of tourism, it also helped to boost other industries like transportation, like hospitality industries, caterings, restaurants, and also, box offices. And so there are many industries that are going to be growing due to this kind of stimulus effect of the tourism industry.
So, Dr. Zhou, so how do you think does a surge in tourism, help the local economy and businesses in some of the Chinese cities? Could you give us some specific examples?
Yeah, last year I went to work in the local province in China, in Guangxi. And so I have many feelings because, when before the Spring Festival, the local governments are very serious about how can we deal with the situation. So we have to be very prepared for some of the consumptions, like for the food, like for the organization of different kind of activities, and also do a lot of preparation for some emergence of like the shortage of supply of certain kind of products. So it's a really important thing, a task for the local commercial government. While I have to say that when they are doing that, they hope that they have a leverage of the effect to boom the local GDP or other kind of job creation or taxes or other things. So for them, they should try to carefully design the path and the effects that can be delivered by the tourism. So in this regard, I would say that they are paying more attention on the different scenarios, like some of them holding the festivals for the lantern festivals and to exhibitions of the vehicles, and they're providing many opportunities in the days because people have more leisure time. They can spend some time and together some money in the local areas. Well, I have to say that different provinces have different situations. So they are trying to benefit with their local resources. Like some of them has historic sites and some of them very beautiful sceneries. And they are trying to attract the tourists. And they have a lot of, provide better hotels and also a lot of things. So for the local government, they are really important factor because the consumption is one of the main factors that is the decision of the GDP growth. It's a beginning of the 1 year. So the first quarter always should be working harder. And it's a good start. So they hope to.
Working harder. And so tourism bureaus in different provinces and cities, they are now competing for internet fame and they want to attract more tourists. So what does this competition mean for today's China and its economy?
Well, I think this kind of competition is very important. I think the government plays a very instrumental role in promoting local economies. So as we know, many of the local governments and the tourism bureaus, they are putting forth a lot of social media clips, videos, and they're introducing their local attractions, their culture, their very unique culture. And they're also helping the businesses to set up, for example, in Harbin, this ice and snow sculptures. The government plays a very important role in setting these up and help the businesses to provide, these very warm, welcoming kind of environment to attract tourists. So I think the business community and also the government can really build these synergetic relationships and promote their local economies. And we need both to be able to really, make the local economy thrive. But I think one word of caution, though, is we need to make sure that, different localities have their different unique cultures and their different unique natural sceneries. So we need to try to avoid a kind of duplication, right? That each government, each locations should have their own uniqueness to attract, the travelers. And also, I think very importantly, the government needs to also make sure that they increase the monitoring regulations of the economy to make sure that the local, tourism industry is in order, right? And they are going to really provide good services for the travel experiences.
And Dr. Zhou, so we've talked about the domestic tourism, domestic demand, and we are also seeing more and more Chinese tourists traveling abroad during this Spring Festival season. So what's your experience? I know that you traveling, to Japan, right?
Yeah, it's true. So it's the first time I went to Japan. I think it's a quite interesting journey. So I have experienced some different cultures, and I have to say that according to the scenarios about the tourism, they also want to have to attract more Chinese tourism. You can find that in the past several months, that some countries are trying to give the waiver of the visa to go to their countries because they want to make the better use of the time of the Spring Festival because they know that Chinese tourism can go there to not only to experience some of the culture, seeing some of the natural sceneries, but also to buy a lot of things. So they hope that Chinese tourism can be very important polar for the development of the consumption.
And yeah, so for outbound tourism, what kind of economic impact do you think this will have when it comes to, those countries, no matter it's Japan, no matter it's Southeast Asia?
Yeah, so the Chinese tourists were very super important for the global tourism industry. So before the pandemic, for example, in 2017, Chinese tourists spent $250 billion outside of China when they went on trips in other countries. And that accounts for about 1/5 of the global total. So that is very significant. And because of the pandemic and because of the interruptions, we are yet to see the full recovery of the outbound tourism. As I mentioned earlier, it's only about 80% of the pre-pandemic level. But that said, that is still very significant, especially for some of the very tourism-dependent countries. So I think, as Chinese tourists go abroad, they will be able to really bring a lot of consumption demand and also, a lot of the other industries that would grow because of the Chinese tourists. So I think that would be a great boost for the global economy.
And Dr. Zhou, so we are talking about tourism, but for consumption and demand in other areas, how do you see the potential of green consumption, health and wellness consumptions, and smart products as, areas where Chinese consumers are willing to spend more money on?
Yeah, actually, in my understanding, that the Chinese consumers are having more choices. So they have better and more choices for the green products, smart products, and like the robots, like smartphones. Yesterday evening, I went to our supermarket and to look at Dajiang is a drone producers. So they have so many types of drones and together with many cameras, which is very attractive to my children. So they really like that because they think that they can use these equipment to enhance their abilities to record and also what they're experiencing and also have a better angle of observing the world. Like from the drone perspective, they can look at the sceneries in our like the bird view. So it's a real interesting and attractive thing for them. And also I have to say that for many, China is entering our aging society. So we have so many senior persons. So we have to look for more, a kind of people to support how can we take care of those seniors. So for the robots, I think that many companies are really get noticed about this kind of new phenomena and demand. They are trying to do better to improve that. Well, the third one I need to see is about the artificial intelligence. It brings us so many opportunities and so many abilities. In the past, many of the students have to go to school to learn how to program. But now it seems that they do not have to spend too much time on how to learn the language, the computer language. They can use the artificial intelligence to help them to do that. So I think that from consumptions to the manufacturing, there are so many things that can be improved by the development of technology, while Chinese companies are doing much better to provide so many choices. And that is on the competition status. And these companies can do better by the competition and also get some feedback from the consumers and also the manufacturers.
Well, we're speaking with Dr. Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow with the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation, and also Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University. And after a short break, we'll take a look at Chinese digital finance industry and the development of the digital economy as a whole. Stay with us.
Deep Dive, a podcast of CGTN Radio. We go beyond headlines with reporters from around the world. Search for Deep Dive on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Take a deep dive into the news every week. Hear our conversations.
You're listening to Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. During this year's Spring Festival holiday, many Chinese tourists have traveled overseas and not only have expanded the visa-free policies, fueled the boom of the outbound tourism, but China's flourishing mobile payment platforms have also enhanced their holiday experiences worldwide. Chinese payment platforms have expanded their presence in many countries and regions, connecting thousands of merchants and individuals. So actually, Yan, for Chinese consumers were quite familiar with WeChat Pay, Alipay. They have expanded their presence in many countries and regions. And so how do you explain their popularity, not only in China, but also in other countries and regions?
Right. So I live in Portland, Oregon, in the United States, and I actually discovered that in our local grocery store, the Chinese grocery store, they actually accept, WeChat Pay. And this is not, something, international chain or anything like that, of course, accept WeChat Pay and also, Union Pay and so on and so forth. But it just shows that it's now becoming so popular and it has been, really show up more and more in all kinds of stores, grocery store, department stores, supermarkets, and so on and so forth. So I think the reason that it's becoming so popular, in China, for sure, all payments, about 60% of the total payments in China are done through mobile devices. And so because, this is a very safe and secure way to make payments, it's also very convenient. You don't need to bring a wallet with you when you're in China. You don't need to bring any cash or cards. You just need your phone. So it becomes very convenient for consumers. And so that's the same in the US or elsewhere outside of China. And finally, also, it's very efficient. You are not charging fees to use these kinds of payment systems. And it's so easy to do, right? You don't necessarily need to have the internet connection. You can use your mobile data to make the payments. So it becomes very efficient. The transaction can be done simultaneously as you hit the button. So I think the safety, the convenience, and then also the efficiency is really what allow these electronic payments or e-payment system to be so popular in China and outside of China. And of course, outside of China, more and more Chinese consumers, Chinese tourists, they're contributing greatly to economies outside of China. So therefore, I think all these businesses really welcome Chinese consumers use these e-payments because that's what they're comfortable with and that's what they prefer.
And Dr. Zhou, so China is also moving very fast in launching the digital currency. So what's the purpose of the digital yuan and what's the incentive for customers to use it?
Yeah, so before talking about the digital currency, I also want to share some of my experiences of using the mobile payment in Japan. The first thing we want to, when we went to the groceries, went to the supermarket, I also ask them, do you have the WeChat to pay? Because, the Japan is still our cash-based society. So many of the transactions are, realized by the cash. We didn't take too much cash. We use the mobile, and it's a very important one because they can even do it offline. So I think it's very convenient, and because the exchange rate are really good for us to use WeChat to directly pay. We don't have to transfer from the RMB to US dollars, then to yen. So it's a kind of different systems. So as talking about the currency, the digital currency, I think that it is very obvious that many of the countries suffers with a cost of making the cash and the coins, and also what's more is about how can we keep that, how can we transport that from one place to another. So for the digital currency, they have saved a lot of the cost by the central banks. And the second is also important because the central bank of China or different countries have a very important function. They have to admit the usage of its own currency. We have to prepare for some kind of bad behaviors happen to this currency. So there are a lot of the activities are according to with the currency because they can use it for the crimes. So I think with the digital currency, it's much easier for the central banks they can monitor many kind of these behaviors by the same time, not to interfere with privacy with a certain mechanism. While the third one is important also is about the cooperation between the different central banks, because they have a lot of monetary policy. They have to adjust and coordinate with each others. So with a digital currency, it is much easier for the Central Bank of China to discuss with the counterparties about those problems.
And Dr. Zhou, so as you mentioned, China's digital finance industry has accelerated its overseas expansion, and also China's digital economy grew very fast in the past few years. So China wants to facilitate the integration of digital technologies into the real economy. So which sectors has been flourishing during the boom in the digital economy, do you think?
Yeah, I think the digital economy, maybe the most important one in nowadays, it's the e-commerce. The e-commerce not happening in China to connecting the major cities with the urban and the rural areas, but also happened across borders. So I think that is a kind of very important scenarios for the digital economy to develop. They are connecting the demand and the supply side. Well, the second is also important is about the manufacturing, because in China there are so many manufacturing, the systems of different supply chains. They have to coordinate between them, and with the digital economy, it is much easier. And the cost saving to produce those products, and connecting the supply chains by the different participations. Well, the third one is about the smart cities. We know that in China there are many cities are trying to develop the management digitally with the data management, with the traffic, different data about they want to integrate those data and trying to make it more wisely to have a better facilitation or supporting for the transportation and also the flow of the people, flow of the money. So there are so many things that can be improved by the combination of the manufacturing and the services.
And yeah, actually manufacturing, China has built over 10,000 smart factories and digital workshops, and China takes the lead in intelligent manufacturing. Much of that includes the use of 5G technologies and robotics. So what do you think are some of the benefits of the automated factories?
Right. I think that's a great question. I think there are two really important benefits of integrating the digital technologies in the traditional sectors like manufacturing, as you mentioned. Now, of course, the so-called digital economy is the application of the information and communication technologies in all kinds of economic activities that goes beyond just manufacturing, but also, distribution, trade, consumption services, and so on and so forth. But I think for manufacturing sector, it is important. It's increasingly important. On the one hand, as we mentioned, that the Chinese economy is, aging. So we're looking at, we have already peaked in terms of the labor force. And so going forward, what we need is really to boost efficiency and use automation and industrial robotics to provide more industrial, workforce. And I think that is a great benefit for the Chinese society, because then we can, release the labor to other sectors that really need the kinds of human beings, right, to be able to work in those industries, especially services and, people-to-people kinds of services. So I think, that's very important to overcome the potential, labor shortages. And that's not only in China, but also in Japan, in Germany, and so on and so forth. And the second benefits, I think, is really to boost efficiency, because this efficiency is not only about, you can produce more output at a shorter amount of time, with all these digital, technologies, you're able to really streamline your production. You'll be able to organize your production more effectively. You'll be able to really spot the problems in the production process and, avoid any bottlenecks and so on and so forth. But also, I think it's important to know the efficiency also comes with, saving resources. In other words, you can think about, manufacturing sector. You can use digital monitoring, use industrial robotics, and use this big data to detect, right, where there's any wastes of resources and so on and so forth. So I think there are a lot of benefits of, applying the digital and also broader, right, the information technology in the manufacturing sector. But again, you have definitely way more benefits beyond just the manufacturing. For example, smart agriculture could be also one of them, and also services. But at the end of the day, I think, as the Chinese economy shows, the current digital economy is about $7 trillion in 2022. That is accounting for about 42% of the GDP, and that's going to continue to grow. And that is not only going to contribute to the total output, but also really transform the economy and society.
So Dr. Zhou, so Yan mentioned improve the efficiency. What about the trickle-down effect on the worker employment? How are workers integrated into the transition to automation?
Yeah, we know that the human resources is a very important factors in the modern society and also the industries. Well, for the automation, it's kind of very easy to understand that they may need less people, but with different requirements. So I think that for the laborers in China, they have to be working even harder. It's not only the business of the people themselves, of the laborers, because it is about education. They can also help the people to have a better skills. Well, the third one I have to mention is about, the oriented from the companies themselves. Many companies are trying to train the laborers by themselves, by the designed courses, like some of the programming, some of the how can they handling their machineries, and that is a kind of very specific.
Right. I think I agree completely with Dr. Zhou Mi. I think when he said that workers need to work harder, I think what he means is the kind of brain jobs that will require more creativity, more intelligence, human intelligence, and even emotions. I think that's really where the workers in the future will go. So yes, the AI or any other sort of digital technologies are going to affect the workforce. But that doesn't mean that workers would all just, lose their jobs.
Well, we're speaking with Yan Liang, Professor of Economics, Willamette University, and also Dr. Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow with the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation. And that's all the time we have for this edition of Biz Today. I'm Zhao Yang in Beijing. Thank you so much for listening.